Good Tuesday afternoon. My name is Barbara Velasquez. I serve as Metropolitan Community College's Coordinator of International Intercultural Education. It is my pleasure to welcome you to your first or continued virtual International Intercultural Education programming. In honor of Hispanic Latino Heritage Month, today we are delighted to focus on the lives of three women of extraordinary significance in world history. Please silence your cell phones and your microphones. You will have the opportunity to ask questions after the Tres Vidas performance. Your continued attendance at International Intercultural Education programming could qualify you for recognition of the year. To be considered, complete the online evaluation and include name and contact information. The online address will be on a slide at the end of the program, ccneb.edu/IIEEVAL. During National Hispanic Heritage Month, we recognize the contributions made and the important presence of Hispanic and Latino Americans in the United States. Since 1993, the Core Ensemble has produced and performed new music theater works based on multicultural, feminist, and humanistic topics. They are dedicated to national touring and have performed in all 50 states, having presented live at Metropolitan Community College on a few occasions. We are delighted that during the COVID-19 pandemic, they have adjusted their chamber theater for virtual audiences. During today's event, each audience member will connect individually to a link to see the recorded performance. Our discussion leader will let you know when it's time to view the performance. The goals of the Core Ensemble are to promote intercultural understanding, to explore social justice issues through artistic interpretation, to provide educational programs for young people and adults, and to offer emotionally impactful experiences that spark conversation and inspire actions that make a difference in promoting equality for all. Michael Parola, the Core Ensemble's Executive Director, holds a BFA from the State University of New York, Master's and Doctor of Musical Arts degrees from the State University of New York at Stony Brook. He served as a percussion instructor at the Herrick Conservatory of Music, Florida Atlantic University, and the Conservatory of Music at Lynn University. Please welcome Dr. Parola, who will introduce today's production and artists and lead a discussion after the performance. Michael?
Thank you, Barbara. It's so nice to be here with you today. And I hope that my colleague Genevieve Vega is also with me or with us because my screen doesn't have her picture on it right now. I have a bunch of other attendees on the screen. Genevieve, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, hi, Genevieve. Okay, there you are. Okay, and so yeah, we're just working through as we're all adjusting to this technology. What I'm going to do right now is do a very quick introduction to the video that you're going to be watching. The video does run 65 minutes in length from when it gets started. We will be planning to come back with Barbara leading the question and answers at at the moment. I guess we'll just give you the 65 to 70 minutes from when I stop talking. Genevieve will mainly be joining us in the question and answers. She's one of our Tres Vidas actresses who have performed the show live around the United States many, many times. And so the actress in the video is Rosa Rodriguez, and the actress who is here today is Genevieve Vega. But as Rosa, as Jenny always likes to say, Rosa also directed the show and directed Jenny in the show. So they are very close collaborators, and Jenny will be able to really answer so many questions from the actress perspective and from her own personal perspective. I'll try to just give more historical background about the show and whatever else I can contribute to in the question and answer. Now, let me just quickly say that Tres Vidas is a piece of what we call chamber music theater. It is a combination of a chamber music presentation and a theatrical presentation. I am the percussionist in the group, and I'll be joined musically by cellist Ju Young Lee and pianist Mikhail Darmani. We will be playing music by Latin American composers coming from both the classical tradition, the more popular and vernacular tradition, and there will also be songs that will be sung in Spanish by our wonderful actress, Rosa Rodriguez. Now, the songs are sung in Spanish. The rest of the text is in English. So just so you'll be aware of that, but if you don't understand Spanish, we can always send the translations, but I think you'll get the general idea of what the songs are about just from the way that Rosa delivers them and the context in which they go on. So we have the musical portion of the presentation, and then we have the narrative portion, the three characters that are acted by Rosa. And those are, of course, the great Mexican painter Frida Kahlo, the Salvadoran peasant activist Rufina Amaya, and the Argentinian poet Alfonsina Storni. Again, we'll talk more about it in detail afterwards, but of course, I think most people are very familiar with Frida Kahlo. We will meet her more toward the end of her life when she has been married not once, but twice to the other great painter of Mexico, Diego Rivera. And she's going to talk a lot about her relationship with Diego, a lot about her painting, a lot about the life of great physical pain that she lived for a variety of situations. And so it's a very sort of, I would use the word comprehensive in the best sense, look at her from a certain viewpoint. Rufina Amaya was the sole survivor of the massacre at El Mozote in 1981 during the Salvadoran Civil War. And so that scene will be very dramatic and be portraying Rufina's reaction to finding herself as the only person who survived this terrible event. Alfonsina Storni is considered to be the first great feminist poet of Argentina, living in the early part of the 20th century. And she was a wonderful writer, poet, newspaper writer, a magazine writer, etc. And one of the first Argentinian women artists to be accepted equally by many of her male peers. And she was very important. And she also did this as a single unwed mother, and that was raising her son Alejandro, and we will touch on that also in the scene. So there's a lot of information, a lot of things that Alfonsina will discuss. So that's a basic summary of the show. It runs 65 minutes. I would like to hand it back now to Barbara or to Jason, whoever is going to be doing this, to give you guys the link for the show. And then I think 65 to 70 minutes from now, we'll be back for the Q&A. Jason or Barbara, do you want to take over from here and let us know what time to be back and how to work from here?
I can handle that. I'm going to go ahead and paste the link for everyone in the chat. So you'll see a hyperlink there where you can connect directly with the show. As well, I'll put a timer up so that everyone knows when to come back. Thank you.
Okay, hello everybody. Back from that beautiful performance. Before we go anywhere, I want to shout out a huge thank you to Jason Lyons, delivery support specialist, who helped us with that little hiccup we had there at the beginning. I hope everybody was able to ride the wave with us of COVID-19. There's been a lot of changes. And, sometimes technology just doesn't work as planned, but thank you, Jason, for having a backup plan and getting the performance up for us. I know that some of you are here with classes, and if you have to leave, we will understand, but we want to open up, you can open your mics, and we want to open up for questions to our director, Michael Parola, or Jenny Vega, who serves as an artist with the Core Ensemble. You can just shout out your questions.
Or maybe put it in the chat, if they would be more comfortable with that too. Well, how did you feel about it, Barbara? Did you enjoy it?
Yes, I did very much. I also appreciated hearing from some of the viewers in the chat that said that they found it very powerful. One of my questions to get things started would be, Jenny, do you have a favorite character?
I do. I think my favorite one is Frida. I think that my personality is closest to her. I love playing her. She has so many layers to her. There's a playfulness and there's a powerfulness of her that I really enjoy playing. And I think that also because I know the show, I enjoy those little jokes and those little things that she says, or it really gets the show gets a little bit more intense in terms of like emotionally speaking. So I do enjoy Frida a lot. I have a lot of freedom of her with her on stage, which is really, really nice. It's very playful. Gloriela asked, did Alfonsina then walk into the ocean to die? Yes, she did. She walked into the ocean, then she didn't know how to swim, so that's how she died. Yes, Cynthia?
I just absolutely was stunned at how beautiful the music, the performance, the videography, everything was amazing. And I asked my class from crisis intervention to join us today. I was unsure as to how I would make that fit in to crisis intervention, but oh my goodness, powerful, moving. I can see very many ways that it will fit in to lots of teaching in class. What do you think, Mitchell?
Yeah, I do. I really enjoyed it. I did too like the music a lot. And I did, Frida was my favorite. I just really liked how she was, especially the Henry Ford part I found very interesting. And just her attitude and stuff was great. So really enjoyed it. Great job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How hard is to coordinate music with the acting? Mike, do you want to start?
Well, yeah, how hard is it to coordinate the music with the acting? I think that the way to answer the question is to just describe the creative process, which was essentially that we ended up with this. We started with the script first by Marjorie Agosin, and we started with a list of music that we thought we would want to do in the show. And then it was really trying things out, cutting and pasting. A lot of things just kind of revealed themselves very, very quickly. We even heard certain pieces of music in our heads that would go with certain texts. And then you get in the room just like putting any other kind of musical theater piece together, and you try stuff out. I will say this, that we had some music written specifically for us, commissioned for the show, that we paid for a fairly substantial amount of music, and that in the rehearsal process, I threw it all in the garbage and went and got something else. And that happens. It's just like any other creative kind of thing where you try and error. This show, however, actually came together very quickly, and it was over 20 years ago. This show has been running for 20 years. So 20 years ago, when we put this together, there was no Google, there was no YouTube, there was no real internet. I mean, email was in its infancy, and there was no biography of Alfonsina Storni in English. There was only a biography in Spanish. Today, you go and you put her name in on Google and you'll see everything and get this tremendous amount of information. Same thing with Rufina. You can see Rufina today on Google and the interviews that they did with her later in her life, and also things from El Mozote. Back in the late 90s, we actually sent one of our collaborators to El Mozote to visit the village because nobody even knew what it looked like. Nobody knew what was going on there. And what he found out was that they had rebuilt the village. There was a wonderful memorial to the survivor, or to the people who were lost, rather, that was there. And actually that Rufina had moved to a different village, gotten remarried, and ran a daycare center until she passed in 2007. And I want to add one other point to this. Subsequently, a couple of people have come forward in the later years and said that they also were there and survived. So that whole idea about Rufina being the sole survivor at this point may not be exactly true, but quite frankly, she was the one who was brave enough to speak out and continue to speak out when she was being doubted by the government, particularly the American government, who really did not want this this to be publicized or to be, widely disseminated, because of course this was seen as a fight against communism. So they were backing the government and backing the army and training the army, and the army were the people who went in and did what they did. So it became a very political, it was obviously a political act anyway, but it became even more politicized after Rufina survived. So it becomes a question in terms of the massacre. Does the United States still deny the incident? I think the short answer is they don't want to talk about it. I think nobody will say one way or the other. I met the ambassador to El Salvador at the time, who was there during the time of the El Mozote massacre and also of the Archbishop Romero assassination. And he was still, to that day, that was many years ago, he was scared because many of the Salvadoran generals were given refuge in the United States. As a matter of fact, I think I have one of them living about 10 miles away from me here in South Florida, on a nice pension with a nice house and all the rest of that stuff. So it's very inconvenient for the United States government. And it's also sometimes folks get a little bit upset about the idea that I would be, or we would be saying that, the United States government would be involved in something like this. But, as far as I'm concerned, I'll just speak for myself. The answer is yes, they were, and it's well documented. And it's and a lot of people were very brave in the initial stages, including Rufina Amaya, because of threats, intimidation, all the rest of that stuff, and like that. So we also have another show, which I don't think we've done for you, Barbara, Los Valientes, which has a scene about Archbishop Romero, and it does cover the whole Romero story. So it's very interesting that two of our Latin shows focus with a scene about El Salvador. It's just an interesting coincidence, and that same time frame in the late 70s or early 80s of the Civil War. Yeah, I guess that was a long answer to a shorter question, right?
I think from the perspective of how to coordinate music with the acting, I think that a lot of things that the actor informs the musicians, but also the music informs the acting. So it's a matter of listening to each other. I have to be on top of of everything that I'm saying, because you for them. And it brings us to the second part of the show. Like it's a matter of listening to each other, and I learned this show in a month and a half. We just had a couple of rehearsals, and then it was off to the road. So it's a matter of listening to each other, because we inform each other in both ways.
Yeah, we always say that when we're playing in the chamber music group, and of course chamber music is usually about listening to each other in a small group of musicians, we always say that the actress is actually the fourth member of the chamber music group, not unlike being in a string quartet. And the actress can almost be like the first violinist in a string quartet, something like that. And it's very interesting as a musician how the text actually becomes music when you're playing it, in that kind of level of coordination. And that's really fun when you've been able to do the show many times, that you get that level of comfort and familiarity with it. And that's a wonderful benefit that we have had of doing this show multiple times. Someone else have a question? Gloriella's contributing wonderfully, and Gloriella, if you want to come on and ask another question, please please go ahead and do that. We'd be delighted to chat with you. Or you can just do it on the chat.
Yeah, in this show, who is it?
Gloria's the music. Yeah, well, we appreciate that. Yeah, music really enhances the acting. Marta says, this is not a new finding, correct? Going forward, our nation would do a better job figuring out what to do to fit our values.
Yeah.
Interesting comment. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to just from my perspective, like this show is really unique in its own way, and it has its own challenges. You have to be on top of your game like all the time. You have to be, it's in like an on and, I call it like an on and off switch. You go from one character, then you turn off that switch, turn on the other, and then so on and so forth. And it really, once you, with those first performances were really nerve-wracking for me, because it's you don't only depend on yourself, you depend, like the musicians depend on you and vice versa, but they have been doing this for a long time. I was a new one here, and you have, they depend, they've got you if something goes wrong, but at the same time they depend on you to move forward this story. And really the process is really, really interesting, but it's amazing. I mean, I get to play 3 Latino women and just everywhere in the United States, and it's an honor.
Well, that's, and it's also just so much fun. Since we've been working with actors in this primary role now for over 20, almost close to 25 years, it's been such a wonderful thing to be able to have the acting technique and the acting method and preparation and performance become part of all of this, because I think when we started with the actors, I was at a point in my career where having these actors working the way they worked so hard and did what they did, it was really a fresh inspiration. It wasn't just the same old music thing, and so it really has been a wonderful, and I think the actors have gotten a tremendous amount, as Jenny is talking about, out of that, out of this process.
Jenny, this is Barbara. You talked about moving from the distinct artists, and that was actually one of the questions I had. So how long did you prepare yourself before your first performance? And what kind of things did you do to prepare yourself more than just read a script?
Well, I worked with Rosa I spent 2 weeks memorizing the script. I went to the library like every day because I couldn't concentrate in my apartment. Because it's like 20 to 25 pages of content without the song. So it's a lot, is a lot. I went to memorize everything, and then I went to work with Rosa, the performer that you guys saw. And she gave me a lot of insight in what direction to take, especially with Rufina. Rufina is it's such, the way that is portrayed is such an ethereal story that you have to find a balance between what is a memory and what it's real. So that was a challenge for me. Even in the audition room, it was a challenge for me to actually, because I had an idea of what was the character about. And then when I came to the room, it was completely different. And I thought that I had lost a chance to actually book the show. And then I worked with Rosa, and she actually pointed out, and I keep learning about them. Like last year they brought to Brooklyn Frida exhibit, and it was, you couldn't take pictures because they had all her body casts, they had her shoes, they had her clothes, makeup, and then they had a rare footage that it was only shown at the exhibit. So I got to experience a lot more from her that just the information that everybody knows, you know. And I keep learning a lot about them, so it's a continuous journey of like rediscovering all these women. But yeah, it took, before we went on the road, it was a month and a half, and then at the last week it was finally with the musicians. I learned the music with recordings and by myself, and then that last week it was the musicians, and then we left, and it was like, okay, now go. And then I did it, and
Where
it's
where was
sorry,
your first show? I can't even remember. Do you remember where your
I
first one was?
don't remember when my first show was.
Okay. I mean, I've done this show like 1,000 times with the several actresses, so I'm just not sure. And I know we did it live for Barbara, but I don't think Jenny was there. I can't remember when we did it at MCC. It was a
Was it
few.
Minneapolis?
It might have been in Minneapolis. I can't remember. You know, it was again. You know, we go to
We
or
flew to
Chicago.
Chicago, but no, but we didn't do Chicago that first year. I think that we went directly to Minneapolis. We drove
Or
afterwards.
did you do it? Did you do it first in Michigan? You may have. Again, this is the kind of thing we're talking about. We go to these different places and we can't. You know, after a while, you know, you just it becomes a bit of a blur with the traveling and the performing. That's a whole other story. Oh, here's a question from Gloriella. How hard is it to switch between characters? Did you use personal experiences to develop them besides the research?
Yes, I usually use the Stanislavski um, approach to acting. I don't consider myself method because I'm not method, but I'd use a lot of personal experiences, and it was those first few shows, you're so in your head and you try to do everything right just because it's a lot of material, and like I said, people depend on you to deliver the right lines and the right cues. That those first shows, like, to be honest, I was just on in my head, so I couldn't enjoy them. Now that I've had the flow of the show and I've done it a couple of times, it just comes really easily. Um, I don't think about each character beforehand. I think about before, like right when I'm about to make to become them. Frida is the first one, so I prepare as Frida. I have my playlist. I have my my tools. I have my meditation. For Rufina, I think it's the most um, draining out of the three, because I do use personal experience to develop Rufina. I've never been through a massacre, of course, thank God, but I do have experiences that resemble that kind of emotion of feeling helpless, feeling scared, um, and feeling lost. So I have a strong sense of you know those type of stories in my life. Um, but yeah, it's an on and off switch. Like I don't think uh, about Alfonsina until the end. And for me, it's really important. It was really important in my development of these characters to have difference between one another because it's only me playing them. So for me, it was their physicality was something that I developed to make those changes. Like the way that Frida walks and Frida talks is very different from Rufina, is very different from Alfonsina. And I also I don't have their age, so I had to develop some physicalities to integrate into my character so that it would become first different from the other two and more believable, you know. So basically that's what I do. Has your life been enlightened and influenced from their lives experiences? Of course, yeah. I mean, there are times that it's is interesting. It's most of the time I'm from an island. I'm from Puerto Rico, and if I'm in the water, I think of Alfonsina like right away. It's just automatic. You tend to pay more attention to details in their lives that whenever you come across those details, you're like automatically think of them, and it goes back into the, oh, this is what they must have felt, this is what they must have gone through, this is what even Frida's like love life, which was tumultuous to say the least, or adventurous if you want to call that. It's just identifying those places, and I think that for me as a Latino woman is really empowering to bring life to these amazingly different but strong Latino women. So that's one of the most important things that that for me this show conveys.
There's another question about the lyrics there, Jenny. Maybe you might want to take that.
No, so are there any messages in the lyrics that I may have missed, or does the narration in between and the mood of the music convey well enough for non-speakers? See, yes, totally. The music, I think that even if you're not Spanish speaker, I think that it conveys the mood really well. From Bésame Morenita, which was the first song, which is very happy and talks about her lover, to La Llorona, which is more of a, I don't think that is a sad mood, but it just talks about like something tragic. To Alfonsina y el Mar. Alfonsina y el Mar is such a beautiful song. It's, to me, I've loved that song forever, and to be able to sing it live, it's amazing. It's just it's very poetic, and it sets you in the mood for what Alfonsina is about to tell you, and her ultimate demise, because it actually, Alfonsina y el Mar tells a story of Alfonsina just like going and walking into the ocean and just dying. So it's like a foreshadowing of what's about to happen. And then I'm trying to think of all the songs here. Yeah,
well, and there's also Malagueña.
Malagueña. And then
La Canción.
La Canción de Buenos Aires. Yeah, even I think that it's brilliantly put together so that you can follow the story, and even if the music, you can hear it and actually portrays the mood of what's about to happen or what's happening in the show. So, yeah. Any other questions? And as for Alfonsina, it makes me cry too. That song, it always gets
Alfonsina has always been my favorite character and my favorite scene. And when she does the poetry of who is the one I love, no one will ever know, to that wonderful solo cello, Picasso, that is my favorite moment in the show. I just think it's spectacular, and I love it very much. So it's, you know, and I'm just so glad that we've been able to put it together and be able to do it, you know, and do it for so many audiences, you know.
Yeah.
And to keep it going now in the middle of all of the drama that we're living through in our daily lives. I mean, it's no joke, to say the least.
So if there's no more questions, I'd like to thank again our technical staff, thank Michael Parola, who is behind bringing this to Metro again. Thank Jenny for your beautiful comments and giving us the opportunity to connect with you and how you prepared. This was a really nice discussion. Thanks to the audience members who really stuck with us and had some marvelous questions to make us move forward. And I will say to you that when I first contacted the Core Ensemble, and this is not unique, I've heard this a lot, oh, I don't think we could do our things virtually. It's so beautiful for me that you have taken the leap. This has been an opportunity for people who would not have, were this live, would not probably have been able to come and see it. So we're thankful for the steps that artists are taking, thankful for the US government providing CARES money that has helped, we saw in the end. And we just move forward, and we all believe that we'll be stronger and better and more creative And thank you to Metropolitan Community College for allowing us to work in a virtual format and get help from people across many departments to make this happen. Jason, could you put up our slides, please? We'll be finishing here. So I want to remind you that, as I mentioned earlier, we have an evaluation that's online at mccneb.edu/IIEEVAL. If you complete that evaluation, it would help us with feedback. And if you add your name and contact, we will know who you are for recognitions for those who are continued participants throughout the year. Next slide, please. Our next Hispanic Latino Heritage Month program will be next week, the 13th in the evening, and Marcos Morta, who's from here in Omaha and has influenced a great deal of the musical artistry in our city, is going to do a lecture on years of Mexican festivals in Omaha. And we'd love to have you join us then. And I want to thank you. That's it for our slides, right, Jason? Okay, I think so. Thanks to everybody. We hope to see you in the future, and we'll be turning off our webinar in just a moment here.